Hi, my name is Joy Langley and I'm from stopfeelingstressedout.com, and I've been kindly invited to talk to you by Marcia and Carol from Discover Your Best Consulting Limited about resilience. Now, resilience is a big topic, so I'm going to share kind of the highlights that I know about. I'm a stress management coach. I'll just give you some more details about me. I've been working with clients for about 15 years, looking at stress and anxiety and all the things that human beings experience. And within all of that, resilience is an essential part, an essential skill that you have to learn. So today I'm going to helpfully just take you through some of the ideas that I have and get you to think about how resilient you are at the moment and how it fits into your life when it comes up, and what you do about it. So the things you'll learn today, hopefully the signs and the thought patterns that happen, and they kind of show that resilience is being called upon. You need it in that moment. We're looking at some of the thoughts in the background, these subconscious ideas that we have about ourselves and beliefs, and the impact again that that has on our resilience. And finally, you know, the strategies and the processes that you need, things that you can call upon in that moment to help you rise to the challenge, I call it. And I also call it your response hyphen ability. And that is an interesting word in itself, responsibility. But we're looking at how quickly we can actually, deal with a situation when it's in front of us, and then sometimes how quickly we can recover. And I know that the way that I work, and from my knowledge, that a lot of the things that we hold about ourselves are formed from a very young age. And people say 7 years old. You know, it's that very, very young age when we're just learning. And we lay down all these ideas about ourselves, about other people, and about the world. And they don't necessarily grow as we grow. So even though we're, fast forwarding to today, we can be a big adult with very, very, I suppose, small ideas. So let's look at how that plays out. So I have lots of definitions of resilience, and I did look at the dictionary like I normally do, but I like my own ideas, of course, because some of the definitions are relating to, let's say, ideas around metals and the pressure and things like that, engineering sort of terms. So in a way, the word resilience has probably been taken from that world. But the idea of being able to bounce back is interesting. And I know that in the moment when you're faced with a challenge or a danger, you do have to find that resource that you either are familiar with or create one very quickly, a new one. And I call it, you also use your inner teacher, that intuition as well. And it's needed in that moment. It's not necessarily something you're given a lot of choice in terms of thinking about. Sometimes you have to just deliver your response in that moment. And it's a bit like being a magician. You know, you're creating things, you're creating new ways of being, you're challenging old thoughts in that moment to deal with the situation in hand. So we're looking at ideas of strain, pressure, tension, and also the physical demands, mental demands, emotional demands that are placed on you in that moment. So I've got a little experiment for you. I hope you're going to stay with me on this one. Just want to see how adaptable you are. Now, imagine you encountered these two unicorns on the screen for the very, very, very first time. Now, you've got three options here. One, you're going to run. Two, you're going to fight. Or three, you're going to totally ignore it. Now, depending on whether you've encountered unicorns before, dare I say rubber unicorns, as you can see, your response is going to be very different. However many of us are watching, we could all have a very, very different response, and we tot up and see which one wins. But I just want you to notice that children, they don't necessarily question things. They take things as face value, and especially when they're new, they might not have the resources to deal with it. So imagine I told you beforehand that unicorns are very dangerous things. You must keep away from them. And the ones with pink hair are especially dangerous. You're going to be a bit worried when you see that little one in the corner, even though it's small, but it does have pink hair. So thoughts are really, really powerful. Beliefs are really powerful. And yes, of course, your response is going to give you some information for the future, because you'll be laying down an idea that, okay, the last time I met a unicorn, I dealt with it. So I would say that's you building up your resilience in that area. Oops, let's go back to the other one. So obviously we don't meet unicorns much in real life, or I certainly don't, unless I'm in a toy shop. But you might have been in some very, very real situations to do with, work, being late for work, getting stuck in traffic. You could be stuck on public transport. You might have had a sudden problem with your family just before you're about to leave. All these things happen. You might be experiencing illness, personal or in your family. You may have had an argument with someone, and I would say that the more important somebody is to you, the more critical or the more dangerous that conversation feels. And I can call it a deal breaker sometimes when this could be the end of our relationship because of this argument. You might have missed an important deadline. That could be work, it could be anywhere, but work seems to be where deadlines exist. An emergency can just arise, as I said, crises, it happens, created outside, things happen outside of you all of the time, which you don't have any control over, and that is a big problem. It could be financial. It could be a bill that suddenly appears, something suddenly goes wrong, a car breaks down, you need to replace your car, big things that happen where you think, oh, I need this lump sum of money, where am I going to get it from? So my big question to you then, in terms of your resilience and you noticing, am I resilient? You probably recognize a lot of these situations, variations of them, and you might be beginning to think, actually, I am quite resilient. And I would say, yes, you probably are very resilient because you've encountered so many new situations from the moment you were born. The moment you're born, you have to learn to walk and talk, remember all that stuff they teach you at school, adapt to strange, environments, learn how to respond to new people. It just goes on and on. So really, if someone said to you, are you resilient? The answer is probably yes, because you have got to this stage of your life and you must have developed some resilience. But really, looking at where the problems might be with the resilience is when you're faced with something completely new. And I call that having to think on the spot, having to respond. That responsibility has to kick in really quickly and you have to deal with something. So signs that resilience might be needed. Now, these are looking at the physical signs that are happening in your body. You might be feeling a bit nervous or a bit jittery. You might get butterflies in your stomach, that kind of floaty feeling, or, my stomach rumbles as well. So the stomach is shutting down because it's sort of seeing some danger. You might lose interest in things, old things and new things, lack of focus. We have lots of physical signs around clenching our teeth, getting tension in our arms and our legs. Racing heart is a really, really big one, pretty obvious sometimes when we're in that situation where I need to meet this new situation and I need to do it now. And I know my heart rate starts to go off like crazy. You might notice that you're not sleeping very well because there's something that you need to solve. Again, the resilience is being called upon, perhaps not in that moment, but you're certainly thinking about it. You might be irritable, lose your appetite or eating more, headaches, aches and pains, and also just watching for things to go wrong. That's a sign that, something needs to change in your life and solutions need to be found. So I know that resilience is something that will eventually happen. Trust me, it will eventually happen. And it's about finding a good solution to the problem that's in front of you. Other ways in which you might notice that resilience is being called upon or being, demanded from you. You might have thoughts like, why does this always go wrong? Bad things only happen to me. You might be saying things like, I hate this world, I hate myself, pretty deep stuff when it gets to that point. I should be able to cope with this by now. So again, resilience that you've shown in the past, you're thinking, well, I've done this before. Why can't I just get on with it? Why am I always presented with the same problems when doing this? Other thoughts around, I'm so stupid. You label yourself and you call yourself awful names. And you also have this idea that everybody else can cope. Everybody's more resilient than I am. And when I look around the world and I look around the room, and when I'm with people, I'm thinking, yeah, there are people that are really good at dealing with these situations. Why can't I? You know, and it's very easy to notice that the thoughts might be saying, just keep away from this, avoid it. Let's go and have something to eat. Let's have some alcohol. Let's take some, medication. Let's do something to distract ourselves from the fact I now need to respond. And my final one is kind of like, just help. I really don't know what to do in this moment. So, there's some very clear thoughts that you're going to be having, along with the signs that I've just mentioned too. And one of the things that you do is you now develop lots of beliefs and, let's say, rules, and you make assumptions based on the situations that you face, okay, and the way in which you deal with them. So out of all of these situations that I've been in, one of the ones that I've come up with for myself, which is probably not true, but I run this as a pattern, as a message in my mind, it's easier to run away from challenges and to avoid them because they're painful. So my mind's already made this connection between the challenges asking something of me. I do have to meet that challenge, but wouldn't it be nice just to sneak away or hide under my duvet? Or I always say run away, which is disappear off to Scotland because it's so far away from England where I live. Just that desire to not deal with it. And other situations that you might notice as well when your resilience is being demanded of you. You could just observe a situation where there's that power struggle. This is just one-on-one. I'm right, you're wrong. Now, other feelings get activated in that moment too, like annoyance and irritation. But also, are you able to withstand a discussion where you may not be right, where somebody's ideas are different to yours? It's a very interesting place. And it requires you to stand there and just deal with it, process it. So I call that resilience, personally. Triggering those negative beliefs about yourself, and the physical danger and harm that you might be in. They might be real situations where you are physically challenged or there is danger, and your resilience will be called upon. You have to respond in some way. There might be emotional or psychological harm. So again, it's not always about a visible harm that's happening to you. Again, this can be something that's happening inside your head. We run where we have such a great imagination and we can scare ourselves in the moment. So resilience is an interesting thing because if it's real, deal with it. And if it's not, you've got to understand that it's just part of your imagination. So things that might also call upon your resilience and that ability to respond, to bounce back, to adapt, rejection and disrespect. Now, sometimes human beings, I say that human beings are great, but wouldn't it be nice to be on an island sometimes? Because they force us to respond. I think relationships are a big challenge for everyone. But you can do it. And it's developing that resilience within relationships too. So other things like anger, I know, can activate that resilience and other uncomfortable emotions. Like I said, it's easier sometimes to avoid situations, avoid conflicts. But again, the avoiding of a conflict and a situation is not going to allow you to grow that part of you, that resilience, which needs to encounter new things in order for it to grow. So despite that place being uncomfortable, just try and live with it, try and be in that space. And what I'm talking about when I say resilience, it's also linked to, I'm sure you've recognized, anxiety and that feeling that comes up when we worry about the future. I just want you to sometimes breathe through it. So you've probably heard of some good breathing techniques, but the most simplest ones are the ones of just imagining a very, very regular wave pattern of breathing. And you might be breathing in 3 times and out 4. Sometimes the out of breath is a good way of, like, again, triggering this relaxation response in us. So think about that too. Now, I've been talking a lot about beliefs and how they might be contributing towards either building up your resilience or tearing them down. So ideas like this, if they're buried in your subconscious, could undermine your ability to respond in that moment. So I'll just run through some of the names quickly. You know, I'm unlovable, I'm unlikable, I'm undesirable, I'm unwanted, I'm uncared for, I'm unworthy, I'm bad, I'm different, that's odd, I'm bound to be rejected, I'm stupid. And again, all of these are just ideas which have formed over time. And I call a thought as, it's like a bit like forming a brick, you know, basically you bake the brick and it hardens, and that's what happens with your thoughts. They become kind of hardwired. You don't even realize that they're operating you in the longer term. Other beliefs: I'm helpless, I'm powerless, I'm out of control, I feel vulnerable, I'm weak, I'm inadequate, I'm ineffective, I'm incompetent, I'm not good enough, I'm unacceptable, and I'm a failure. Now, even as I'm saying all of those words, my brain is just going, my brain's like, just, my name's Joy, for goodness sake. And my brain's going, oh, Joy, that all sounds so terrible. And I'm feeling bad. So I know that at the end of this session with you, I'm going to undo some of those ideas that I've planted in my head about me. It's just showing you how powerful beliefs are. Because even though I know a lot of those things are definitely not true about me, putting the word I am in front of it is the quickest way of sending it to your brain. And it suddenly says, oh, really? Is there a problem, Joy? I didn't realize that. It does all the things it's meant to be doing. So be conscious sometimes of your unconscious beliefs, because they may be impacting your ability to be resilient as you want to be. I'm going to share with you a very ridiculous story. It's a situation that I've been in. Now, I've got a degree, and I'm not showing off or anything else. It was quite some time ago, and it's chemistry. Such a smart subject, isn't it? And business studies. But here's one of my beliefs, guys. I don't like glitter. I hate glitter. It tests my resilience to the max. Now, it sounds really trite. It sounds really, you know, pathetic. Like, Joy, come on, grow up. It's just glitter. But glitter pulls out a lot of, it makes me feel out of control. I don't know where it's going to go. I can't control where it's going to go. Sometimes you do a good job of clearing up glitter, and there's still that one bit of glitter that's left right on the middle of your nose, which of course you can't see. Everyone will see it. So I'm really living in fear that everyone will see this glitter and they'll be judging me because I can't see where it goes. So I don't like glitter. And I put down that this place of being out of control is a very interesting one for human beings. It undermines my ability to bounce back, and it feels very permanent. You know, this glitter is going to be here forever, and it's pervasive, it's going everywhere, and it feels very personal. Why is it picking on me? Why is it that everybody else seems to use glitter and it's fine? So glitter is a very simple idea that I'm just throwing at you as like a ridiculous kind of situation, ridiculous thought. Joy, do you really need to be resilient in that situation or not? I could let it go, but unfortunately, glitter seems to be everywhere. People send me cards that have glitter on it. Christmas is challenging. Birthdays are challenging for me in a very, very, very small way. Just wanted to share that with you, just to make you realize that situations don't have to be gigantic. They can be quite minor as well. And learning how to become more resilient to that, well, I do try, but I recognize it's one that I think has got the better of me in that respect, because it seems to be everywhere. And I'm sure you understand with glitter, or perhaps I'm the only one, but you might share that with me.
It does get everywhere.
It does get everywhere, Carol. You are so right. I'm not the only one.
All that glitter that people put inside birthday cards, not the glitter, the happy birthday names that go everywhere when you open a gift or, you know, your card. And just, you find
for a tidy freak like you, Cece, that is a nightmare card, isn't it?
I go, oh no.
I am so glad that I'm not the only one that feels that way, Carol and Marcia, because I was half thinking, should I talk about that? Shouldn't I talk about that? I'm thinking, but you know what? It really bugs me.
We've all got these things, though, haven't we, in our lives?
Yeah.
So it's just really nice for you to share a little bit about the things that are on your mind too.
And it's questionable whether that is something I should worry about not being resilient with around. So I don't give it that much time, but you may need to give the other things that are happening in your life more time, more energy in fixing. Like I said, you'll have your own hierarchy of things that need to be solved. And the problems that I've given you range from like finances to health, to relationships, to, you know, just jobs, you name it. There's a lot of things you could have on your list that need to be dealt with. And the problem with, I suppose, resilience is something that you can have as a baseline, but there's so much above it. It's a bit like, let's say, I like this iceberg idea, isn't it, really? So resilience in the moment is probably the top of the iceberg. Yeah, I know what I can do, blah, blah, blah. That normally happens, this normally happens. But what about underneath that iceberg? 9/10 apparently hidden. Okay, so there's this huge amount of problems which you've not encountered before that you're going to encounter. And you can either become better at anticipating that you don't know what's going to happen, but when you get there, you'll deal with it. Or you can become very worried and very anxious about it. And I'm talking about resilience is needed because in that moment when you need to solve something, it can be critical. You might have to help somebody that you know. You might be saving your life. You know, it can be quite critical in terms of like, what do I need to do right now? I need to get myself together and be able to withstand this pressure. And after it's all finished, I need to bounce back. And it pulls into my thoughts, trauma. So human beings experience, you know, traumatic situations. And funnily enough, majority of us, we bounce back. We are able to adapt and also respond to resilience. So I don't want you to, like I said, I just want you to have a bit of a range. If it were a line, like, you know, small problems up here and big problems down here, it's like a continuum of different things, and you just get better at responding. And the one thing also is that people have different thresholds, and they can have different thresholds at different times in their life, which makes it even worse. So, you know, at some point you might have been able to deal with something, let's say, you know, your child being sick, or you might have been able to cope with your car breaking down on the motorway. You know, there were times when you were really good at it. And then there are times when you're just not good at it. And that's hard to, I suppose, to understand. Like, how comes I did it once and I can't do it again? And I want you to realize that even positive events in your life will demand resilience, that ability to stand the pressure, to deal with it, to fix it. Because I don't think resilience just applies to negative things. People talk about resilience and it seems to be coping with the negative things. It's also coping with the positive things. I mean, let's look at marriages, moving house, changing jobs, moving to a different country, someone coming to visit you and staying for a whole month. What a challenge that would be. Someone that you like coming to stay with you and living for a whole month. As much as you love them, hey, they're in your environment and it's going to take its toll on you. And I think that just knowing that familiar situations don't always elicit that resilience that you had before. So you can be kinder to yourself. Big words in the personal development world to do with compassion. You know, you have to show some kind of compassion towards yourself and be kind to yourself. It's important. So I hope that you identified with some of that. So Marcia, Carol, I'll bring you in at this point.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
I've got more. I'm just asking you the question.
Yeah, it's there's so much really that you've talked about already. I like the responsibility in terms of responsibility. I do like that, and I talk about this often in terms of dealing with stress and managing change, that you have to take responsibility for yourself. You know, so that I like the way you split that up there in terms of responsibility. The signs and symptoms are a really good reminder of what people might be going through when they're dealing with not being as resilient as they would like. And in particular, you know, the clenching of the muscles and the clenching of the jaw and the teeth. That, you know, that one jumped out at me because it's not one that I commonly go to and use in terms of signs and symptoms. So that, you know, that's a really interesting thing. You know, you've talked about the help and support, and what's really important is people finding the right help and support. It's not just any help and support, and that is based on need, isn't it? What do they need at that particular time in order to get that help and support? So yeah, a few things that have have popped up really for me in this first bit.
Yeah,
Marcia, good questions. And that help and support, I mean, that help thing is like, someone help me, you know, like if you're in water and you need a life buoy thrown at you. But it's also in that moment, you're quite right, recognizing that you do need help. You know, being resilient is also being able to ask for help. And you're quite right, finding the right resources at that time.
and it's important to look at both. You know, you need to be resilient in good ways, if you like. And, you know, you were talking about positivity demands resilience. I very enjoyably had my family here from Australia last Christmas, but they were here several weeks. I do love them, I adore them, but it did bring on challenges and other things. Not that we didn't get on together, because thank goodness we did. But it does bring on a different feel when somebody's living in your home all that time.
Yeah.
You want to go out your way to do everything, but do they need that from you? But you fuss and you do all that.
So it's interesting that resilience exists in your world, Carol, but you were being a different type of resilience was being called upon, one that you weren't entirely familiar with because they're not there all the time. But if they were there more often, you just tap into it quickly, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, is it okay to move on, guys?
Lovely, thank you.
Brilliant. So I want to move on to some of the solutions. And this image has got this coiled spring. Sometimes we can feel like resilience is like the potential that we have to respond, you know, and the tension that's in our bodies as well. So resilience is interesting. And this idea about bouncing back, you know, it's one thing that people sometimes say, the ability to bounce back. That's part of it, but it's also the ability to deal with something in that moment. I don't know if it's bouncing back. Recovering as a word is important. Whether you need to recover quickly, it depends on where you are. You know, I always say that I probably am the worst person to have around you in a crisis. Why? Because it takes me a while for my resilience to kick in, and then I'm okay. And afterwards, it takes me a while to recover, but that's the same for everyone. But I know that in a crisis, I actually want somebody who responds quickly. Their response ability is quick. You know, I just want someone like that around me. I have to be that person for myself, and I might be judging myself harshly in terms of the length of time that it takes me to recover, to actually for that resilience to kick in, because really I might be responding quite quickly, but time can stand still. A bit like those movies that you watch, your time stands still, tick, 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 when you're trying to solve something. So perhaps I'm okay. But yeah, I do observe other people. So there's that comparison to other people, which I've just told you not to do. Other people seem to respond quickly. Why can't I? So I want you to learn to channel that inner chameleon. Now, chameleons, they kind of adapt to the environment that they're in. And resilience is asking you to do that. So that's why I kind of said you might be the same person, but someone's put you in a totally different environment. And you have to cope, you have to respond, you have to adapt. And you can fall back upon the memories that you've got. Your memories are a good resource to show you how to be now. So past triumphs can come into your conversations, into what you're doing, and it will bring confidence with it. You know, you'll feel confident in that moment, but also recognizing that, you know, you will have to adapt according to the situation that you're in. So there's either the willingness, you know that it's okay, you'll do it, or the unwillingness, you do have to now blend into that blue background where that chameleon is, or that green background where that chameleon is, or that red background is sat on a tree of bark that's red. You know, you might be quite reluctant to change. Okay, so that's an interesting one. You're reluctant to change. Do you have to do it? Don't you have to do it? That's going to be quite personal to you, because the bigger question might be, why do I have to become a blue chameleon, Joy? Why do I have to become a green one? Why do I have to become a red one? Yeah, good question. And I think I'll leave that for you to answer, because you might have to work out whether the environment that you're in suits you or not. And I'm not telling you that you have to always adapt to every environment that you're in. There might be a good reason, actually, for not adapting to an environment. So I can't cover every outcome, but if common sense might say, if this situation is not useful for me, it's damaging me, listening to some of the more intense emotions that you might have, then perhaps you will come to a better solution, which is, I don't need to be in this environment, I'm going to move away from it. So that's my idea about channeling that inner chameleon that you have. And I've been talking about thoughts and emotions, and I suppose actions as well. I call it my T cycle. You know, there's these cycles that we get into. So thoughts will connect with emotions, will connect with actions, and you'll get a cycle of events. You can analyze what's happening to you sometimes. So be aware sometimes that if you're trying to break down a problem way before you have to deal with it, look at what you're thinking, look at what thoughts contribute to it, even what core beliefs might contribute to it. Look at what emotions might contribute to it, and look at what actions you're feeling like you want to do. So negative cycles get stuck because we always respond the same way, perhaps, you know, we're always thinking the same way. And you break one of these chains, think something different, find an alternative way of looking at it, even act differently. So if I've had an argument and instead of just, you know, walking away, I might decide to stay there. That would change the way in which I have another thought. It might change the way in which I feel. So just being a little bit aware of what's going on inside of you is important. And I know it's important for you to believe that the brain can be rewired. Now, I'm not just making this one up. You know, neuroscientists and surgeons, they're all saying this. New discoveries about humans happen all the time. And this is a really amazing one, because there's this old sort of adage that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So, you know, there's no point. But science shows that your brain will rewire itself, which is lovely. It's quite plastic. It's malleable. You can move it about a bit. So you can have new thoughts. You can look at those old beliefs and you can reduce them. People talk about, you know, eliminating, you know, thoughts and beliefs and stuff. I think, well, I don't know if I've ever eliminated them. I've reduced them. I've rationalized them sometimes, and they're not as painful. But eliminating, changing, yeah. Think about other ways of looking at what's happening to you, and also recreating new ones. So there's this idea that neurons that fire together, they wire together, but you have to keep walking the same pathway to embed it. And this is encouraging you to find new ways, but believing that new ways are possible too, because the brain's pretty smart. And activating your resilience, just observe more. You know, be like a child, you know, you can observe more, learn more, listen, explore, experiment, you know, apply what you know. I think we can develop that skill. Okay, I know that I certainly have. And that also encourages you to not be afraid of trying new things, because trying new things is going to, again, activate your resilience, work your way up to being resilient. You know, set yourself 6 challenges. I used to give my clients a challenge, you know, relating to a dice. I give them a dice with the numbers 1 to 6 on either side, of course, and they'd throw it. Before they throw it, of course, they'd write down 6 new things that they're going to try. I say, right, throw the dice. And they'd throw it, and whatever number came up, they'd have to do it. Interesting. You do develop your resilience around that. You also calm down your anxiety, and you also tell yourself that whatever happens, I will be able to cope. So they're all going hand in hand there. So children do it. Children have, you were once a child, I was once a child. You know what? We can do this. We have been doing it. We seem to forget as we get older because we get frightened. And there's this word failure that creeps into our books. Failure is such a bad thing, you know. We live in fear of that, and it stops us from trying new things. But I'm saying try some new things. You'll be surprised at the benefits that that brings. And also another idea I love is just, for me, it's this idea of filling up this cup, your resilience cup, and what you believe about yourself becomes true. There's lots of ideas around thoughts. Now, be careful what you think. I think when the penny drops on that particular thought, you realize it actually is important what I think, because what you think influences what you feel, and what you feel might influence how you behave or how you act. And all those 3 things, they work together. So be careful how you actually think. And in terms of looking at this idea, I've brought up the word stress here. Empty that stress teacup as well. Your resilience cup you want to fill up by doing things. It might be challenging. It might demand a lot from you. You also have to perhaps recover. So for me, it's about emptying that cup, your stress cup, your resilience cup, because it does fill up. We have lots of daily encounters. You know, there's this word daily hassles that happen, and there are micro challenges that happen, you name it. It keeps filling that thing up, and we keep responding. So this whole idea about resilience is also countered by the fact that human beings can get ill if you're in a situation where you're always having those resources called upon, but never ever resting or topping up, as I call it, my happiness cup, because of course I'm joy. I've got a happiness cup as well as a stress one, as a resilience one. I've got a lot of teacups, as you've probably noticed. So I'm going to deprogram myself now, because you saw that earlier on, I said all those awful things to myself. But that was a way of flushing out some of the core beliefs that you might have in your basement, in your subconscious. So flip that thought and repeat it. Repeat yourself some conscious statements right now in front of you, real time. I'm going to say it. I'm lovable. Boom. I am likable. I'm feeling better already. I'm desirable. I'm attractive. I'm wanted. I am cared for. I'm worthy. I'm good. I'm different and I'm unique. I'm bound to be accepted. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. Take a breath, Joy. Right. I'm capable. I am powerful. I am in control. I am invincible. I am strong. I'm adequate. I'm effective. I am competent. Almost there, guys. I'm good enough. I am acceptable. I am a huge success. Woo! Now, I actually feel quite pumped up by those statements. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling. Well, how about you, Marcia and Carol? You feeling good about those?
I just think this flip thing is really good, because it made me feel immediately happy, which is obviously what it's designed to do. But on a daily basis, when I say my gratitudes, there's an article, an area in one of my books that I say every day. I'm capable. I'm more than adequate. I'm effective. And then I go on to say, I am good enough. You know, I am as good as my fellow man, the next person to me. I'm powerful. And then you go on to say things like, I'm beautiful inside, or not necessarily say outside, but I'm beautiful. And that's what you mean. And I say these things every day. And some days I don't believe them. And then other days I do.
Yeah.
So that's the resilience for me, recognition of what that is, because you can't feel the same every day, all the time. So it is, again, about the brain being wired and helping you believe that these things are, you are these things, otherwise you'd just go under, wouldn't you?
Great, absolutely. And affirmations, they're called mantras. You know,
Yeah.
you'll hear lots of ways of, I call it reversing some of the negative ideas. And the other thing with negative stuff, negative ideas like that, is that the brain is quicker at believing it. And you need more positive things to be said, let's say more often, just to wipe out one thought. You know, someone was saying to me that it's 17 repetitions. I'm thinking, why the number 17? But I'm going to look into it. It's quite big. I thought perhaps it was 6. Like, you know, one bad thought, let's say it's 6 times, Joy, that might just get my brain to accept that it's okay. But there is this idea that you can't just do one for one. You can't just have one bad thought and then find one good thing. There's this repetition of the good things over here.
Absolutely.
Because the brain is always looking out for the horrible stuff. It's just wired to look for threats. It's wired to keep you safe. So really, it's not so bothered about the positive stuff. It's just focusing on the negative. So you need a little bit of repetition on the positive stuff. So Carol, that's a brilliant practice.
Yeah, like I say though, to be fair, you know, it's not every day that you actually believe them, because it just depends on sometimes how I wake up in the morning and how I'm feeling. But most of the time, and the older I get, I think my resilience is in a better place. But it still doesn't stop negativeness. Just the way we are, the way we're wired, you know, if you like. But in the main,
but awareness is part of the solution, isn't it? I think knowledge is power. You know, literally, knowledge is power. So becoming aware of how we think is important. Resilience is the buzzword of the moment, you know, and really, I think human beings have always had resilience. I don't think we get through life without being resilient. So there's a word that's been put on it now, and people always think, oh my God, there's this new thing. Have I got it? Should I get it? Where do I get it from? You know, can I get it from, you know, the local shop or not? Like, no, you've always had it. You've always had it. You know, and if you really want to like look at that positive resource that you've had anyway, just remember that you once were a child that did try to walk, stood up, fell down, stood up, fell down, stood up, because I could go on for ages. And then you walked. Oh my God, that requires resilience. And then you had to learn language. Again, blah, 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 from blabbing to suddenly saying a word. Everyone's like, oh my God, that's amazing. You said one word, to saying loads of words. So, you know, don't forget that you are resilient. You've got resilience. It's probably part of the way that human beings are. But you can't preempt every new situation. You can't predict every new situation. So knowing that you've got it, knowing that you can call upon it and build upon it and file that away in your filing cabinet as a new experience, you've got to be open to that. It can be scary. It requires a bit of courage as well. Marcia, anything to add, or getting to the end of this, I think?
Yeah, I like the one that stands out for the most to me is the I am invincible. I like that a lot. Really like that a lot. One I might add into my sayings that I have for myself. I mean, Carol and I have had discussions over a lot of this stuff, but in particular, one of your last comments around knowledge. And, you know, my take on knowledge is that, yes, knowledge is powerful as long as you're using it in a constructive way. Yeah. So it's no good. Knowledge itself is no good to anybody if it's just you've just got it in your head. It's about how you use that makes it significant to move yourself forward, really. So we've had many a conversation about this, haven't we, CC? About knowledge. You know, knowledge is king, and you know these phrases that people throw out. And actually, when you examine how that person is using their knowledge, if at all, that's what makes it powerful.
Yeah.
So in a way, like knowledge
And,
is power with action, or
yes.
knowledge is useless without.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's so much stuff that's come out really, and I suppose one of the questions that I want to ask, and I don't know the answer about this, is, you know, when you were talking earlier about the quick response, and how for you said that you might be being a bit hard on yourself about how you respond to situations, emergency situations. Now, how much is our resilience tied into our learning style? Because immediately I started to think about Kolb's learning styles. And some of us are activists, so we move quite quickly. Some of us are more pragmatists, so we're more practical. There's the reflectors amongst us that like to sit back, weigh up the situation, look at the pros and cons before entering into it. And the final one's the theorist, isn't it? The person that likes to have all the researchy bits before they make a move. And I'm just wondering, I don't know, as you were talking about it, I thought that fits with Kolb's learning styles and how we fundamentally do things, because it's how we take in information and knowledge and act on it.
I think you might have
you've got any response to that, really.
It's a valid point, I think. And in a way, anything that stops us from criticizing ourselves and kicking ourselves and putting ourselves down is a good thing.
Yeah.
So you give me a lovely label now to put on myself, Marcia, so I immediately feel more powerful and that I'll be able to cope and stop calling myself names when I'm not responding immediately, because I am a theorist. I'm a
yes,
spirit.
you are.
I gather things. I'm like, oh.
That's definitely you. If that was a label positively to hang on to you, because you like to research and collect information and that sort of thing, and from the discussions that we've had, and you know, the previous comment from Carol about, you know, how she found your personality, really, this is definitely theorist personality, isn't it? And the theorist element of those learning styles.
You're right.
So you get somebody that would dive in, who's the more of the activist style. And actually, a quick response doesn't necessarily mean a competent response, does it?
So right there.
As we well know, you know, the one that dives in, stand back, everybody, stand back, you know, and then you're thinking, oh my gosh, what are they doing? What are they doing? So quick response doesn't necessarily mean competent response. So I think that needs clarifying as well, really.
And to be able to calm a situation down if needs be, that's always a great thing to start with. It's not all about, like Marcia's just said, the worst person in the world just jumps in and goes, I'm the saviour, I'm here. You know?
Yeah, they flick their cape. Flick their cape to one side.
Yeah, come on.
I'm here to save the day.
Let's just rethink this, please. Yeah.
Well, it's good that you brought that up, because people will be questioning, do I have to respond quickly? And as I was saying it as a statement, I thought, oh, now am I telling people now that they have to respond quickly? Because we live in a world where we're told that we have to be so many things. We're all saying, do I have this? Tick. Do I have this? Tick. Do I have this? Oh, now I have to respond quickly, because I know I can't respond quickly. If it were a fire, you give me a couple of seconds, then I'll think, this requires water, this requires water, this requires water. Where's the water? I would do something, you know. I'll be thinking, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? You know, but
you're not giving us this is what you should be or shouldn't be doing. The way I'm taking this presentation is you're presenting us with information that we can then assess and look at, because all the way through, I'm saying to myself, where do I fit? So when you talk about that continuum, I'm all the way through, as you're saying things and talking about different things and giving your examples, I'm saying, where do I fit on this? Where do I sit on this continuum? How would I respond to this? Am I actually somebody that dives in, or am I somebody that reflects? I'm not sure where I you know, where I sit. So, you know, stuff that I need to go away and think about. But what we do know for sure is that the optimism and the pessimism, either ends of that continuum, can be harmful. So it's creating the balance, isn't it? That's somewhere in the middle, that you're not optimistic about stuff. Equally, you're not pessimistic about stuff. You are realistic with some positivity in there.
And I like that idea, Marcia, because, you know, one thing that this brought in optimism and you know, pessimism, and people kind of throw this thing at you. Well, is this cup half full or half empty? Yeah. And I get really annoyed at that. I get really, really, really annoyed, because I know what I'm meant to say. Oh, it's half full. But you know what? I say, but it's also half empty.
Yeah. And that's the reality.
Why are you judging me? I'm thinking that it's half empty too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, going back to jumping in, if you've got the experience in life where you've seen this happen before, or you could save a situation by steering people away, that's a resilience in you, that you recognizing what the situation is and where it's going. And to be able to do that, that is powerful, but quietly powerful, you know, without making a big song and dance. It's not Marcia's way, it's not my way. I'm sure it's not yours, obviously. Being a theorist, it wouldn't be, but
I would love to be visibly like I am the savior, I'm here, but no, it's not going to happen.
I don't think people like to see that totally, but I think that people can be quietly calm and just come along and just, you know, just think it. I mean, I'm not a theorist. I like to think I am, but it's more about gut feelings with me as well.
You're a pragmatist. You are very much a pragmatist, Cecily, in your approach.
And I'll never change that. But if you recognize a situation that could be happening, say it's in the office or somewhere when you're out and about or in a group or whatever, and you can steer stuff away from what you think might be this surmountable tension or whatever it is, that's experience, and that's the power of probably your age and around a long time.
The wisdom.
And recognizing your wisdom.
Wisdom.
That's a word. Thank you.
I think wisdom comes with, well, wisdom comes with practice, but also I think age. Most people that get to a certain age, they've got a certain amount of knowledge that they know. Some of them are a bit full of it, you know, they don't really know anything, but they think they should, or they do. But I know that you're quite right. There's that. And I quite like people that operate like that in the background, because you don't notice them, do you? No, and what's jumping out from me, from what Marcia said and what Carol said on this list of, let's say, positive conscious statements here, is that I am different and I'm unique.
Yeah.
It should be, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, so that's an interest. I think I'm almost on the last slide. Let's have a quick check and see. So my last idea was that lots of different solutions to build up your resilience and get your knowledge on the go. Obviously, your you know, course that you deliver, your group, an excellent place to learn things. Books, fair enough. Retreats, they're classified as like learning retreats where you learn stuff. Motivational seminars, I love them. Things like Anthony Robbins, you know, all these positive speakers. I'm heavily into the world of personal development, so of course it's all falling under personal development. I'm also looking at, when I spoke about counterbalancing, that the micro stressors that build up, you know, your resilience energy being called upon regularly. Do you have any downtime? How do you diffuse it? How do you counterbalance it? So exercising, walking, star jumps, all that movement stuff, which I'm really bad at, I'll admit. Mantras and affirmations, which Carol, you went through yours, which were brilliant, and mindfulness and meditation. So, you know, there's a lot of things. This is just a selection of them. Yeah. But you kind of have, I'm going to use that word to end it, I suppose, responsibility, you know, for yourself and your health. Yeah. And you do. So look at your health too. Everything that we're told that we have to be, should be, ought to be, must be. I know they feel like goals that we just have to head for, like we were Olympic runners just going for the ribbon at the end. But no, you don't just go for it. It's like, also think about your health. So, and this lovely thing about life is not just about the journey. It's about, actually, no, wrong. It's not about destination. Let's get this right, Joy. Life is not just about the destination. So getting to that finishing line. It's also about the journey.
Yeah, enjoying the journey.
Yeah, I've been using that this week myself, just thinking, yeah, I'm racing to do that. I'm thinking, what have you missed out on, Joy?
Oh.
Try and do it more slowly, Joy.
Yeah.
You might notice that there's something nice along the way that you've not savoured. In this world of impatience, in this world of things moving quickly, perhaps it's gone the other way, we place too much value on speed and not enough value on the percolating and the thinking and the, just that quiet reflection, they call it. So it's kind of gone the other way. So I'm trying to now appreciate more quiet reflection time within my busyness. So I am a busy person. I like being busy, but busy might be my way of keeping away from the stillness. We can spend a lot of our lives being busy, and what's the real reason for being busy is that you're trying to avoid you. I don't know how you feel about that, Marcia, Carol.
Well, I've just spent time in my garden of late since the rain stopped, and I find that's a nice place to be, because you don't have to always think about what you're doing with your hands, because you're doing it, but it puts you through this peaceful time as well. So
Topping
I slow down.
that cup up, brilliant, lovely. So I think I've come to the end of it, guys, and you've learned a couple of strategies, spoken a little bit about the impact of the subconscious and your beliefs, mentioned this idea about icebergs, stuff underneath it. There's more stuff we don't know about ourselves than is actually showing on the surface. And a couple of tools, a couple of ideas, strategies, which will help you to develop your resilience. Look at it in a more positive way, appreciate the inner resources that you have, that intuition that you can call upon. I think that I don't want you to use this word or this training as another have to do list. I have to develop more resilience. It's not a stick that I'm beating you with, guys. Okay, I'm not saying you have to have this. Remember, I'm saying you already have it, and you can let it expand. And life tests you anyway. And it's actually the tests of life and the challenges of life that bring out more of this resilience in you. So perhaps just don't be afraid of new things, and don't be afraid of change. Look at it as there will be something positive that comes out of this. So that's going back around to being the world that I live in is all about positivity. Of course, negativity exists. I can't pretend it doesn't. Bad things happen to me too. But I think that learning to manage your thinking is important. And resilience is something that you can definitely build. That's my understanding of that, guys. And you've successfully completed this introductory training from Carol and from Marcia of Discover Your Best Consulting Limited. Woo!
I just wanted to say, Karen, that one of the elements that we didn't talk about here is, but it's implied all the way through, is about trust, and that trust in yourself and your own abilities to be able to affect the change that you want to see in place. I think that's something that hits our resilience, or can hit our resilience quite hard, that we don't trust ourselves enough that we can do what we need to do. Equally, we might not trust the people that we have around us that we are looking for support from. So as we start to get more resilient, that initiates change, and others might not like to see change in us, and so that can affect the relationships that you talked about earlier. So it all absolutely links together.
I like that concept of trust, because I've not brought that up. You're absolutely right, Marcia, but there is an undercurrent. You can you heard
all the
it.
way through, the way through. It's been there, but we've not explicitly talked about
the elephant in the room.
Because it is like you, yes, absolutely. It's a massive subject, isn't it? Once you start talking about this stuff about trust, you then have to start unpicking it. And actually, this is, as you say, an introductory training, which has been brilliant. Karen, can you tell us about any training that you are doing that you think might be appropriate for people listening to this, and how they would make contact with you if they're interested?
Okay, good question, Marcia. You must be able to read my mind, and you know what the last slide is. Let's see.
Oh
my goodness.
I'm preempted.
How do you do it, Marcia? You channel this energy and this. Yes, this is how you reach me, guys. My name is Joy. My organization is stopfeelingstressedout.com. I'm also a therapist. I've got a therapist site, but this is my new program. I'm looking at ideas around exploring how you can have better relationships. So the most recent one is called The Psychology Secrets of Successful Relationships, quite a mouthful, but getting you to look at the ideas that what happens to you, how you manage yourself, not only impacts other people, it's going to have a good impact on other people if you know yourself more. So it's a bit of like, I want to have better relationships. Other people do irritate me. How can I improve this thing with my cheerleader and my inner critic, all that kind of stuff. Looking at yourself, knowing that once you improve this place, it has an impact on other people. It's like a ripple effect. It cannot do anything else but impact somebody else. So that's one of the latest things that I'm developing, and I've been delivering it recently too, so that's good. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, and that's the Facebook group there. So lots of places you can get hold of me at, and I'll probably give Marcia and Carol some of these slides as well, so you can have some of the lists perhaps to, I think it's nice to have a bit of a profile on yourself, how you respond in places. And I love tick lists because they're just so quick and they're so simple. Who doesn't love a tick list?
Yeah, brilliant.
I do.
Guys, I would well recommend that if you are interested in finding out more about resilience and the wider topic, that you tap into Karen Joy and have a look at some of the courses that she's got on offer. And also, if a course isn't really what you're looking for at the moment, then maybe some one-to-one support might be where you're at, and to use these contact details that Karen Joy has kindly given out for us. Karen, just want to say thank you again. Another really good session that I will be logging into my CPD. My list of things that I've been doing over lockdown. I've been making a list of things that I've done for the first time, but also making a list of all the CPD that I've been able to tap into. So this will obviously go on to that list. Thank you so much for being with us again today.
And thank you from me as well, Joy, because I've recognised so much about me from looking at the slides and things I used to do to what I do now as well, which is different, quite different, and the way I think and feel, and the books I buy to all, for my instant cosmic karma. So yeah, I do. Thank you very much indeed. I enjoyed that.
High praise from you guys. Thank you, Marcia and Carol. It's always a pleasure to be on talking to you as well. You always have such good questions. You make me think. That one about the Kolb learning styles from Marcia, that's a real wild card that I'm thinking, where did that come from? Like a boomerang that was. So thank you for the boomerang, Marcia. I will go away and do what I normally do, research it.
Yeah.